You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick with CBT News. The Chevrolet National Dealer Council fosters collaboration between dealers and the Chevrolet brand. As Chevrolet expands their EV lineup this year, we're anxious to know the sentiment among their dealers. Joining us now to discuss the state of his business, evolving consumer expectations, and the Chevrolet National Dealer Council's agenda this year is Andy Guelcher, who's president of Mohawk Chevrolet and chairman of the Chevrolet National Dealer Council. Andy, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Sure. Are you getting a call maybe every hour from dealers around the country saying, what are we supposed to do with these EVs?
There's a lot of heat out there, and one of the things that I'm quick to remind my fellow dealers about is that it's a generally new customer base, and one of the things we really have to lean into is the fact that our existing Chevrolet customers are most likely not going to be EV adopters. Now, there will be some, but these are new customers who we need new marketing cadences for, and that we need to attract into our showrooms to consider our product. And I think that's really important when we're talking about our marketing efforts and getting used to EV sales. We need to identify the people for whom these cars are intended for. And that's a new customer base.
Yeah, for sure. It came up at the NADA convention that we were both at. I sat in on one of the meetings for J.D. Power at the summit, and came up that 33 million people searched the term EVs last month. They were shopping for EVs online and wanting to know more information. However, 33 million people didn't buy, an EV. Do you think there may be a disconnect at the showroom level, maybe among the sales staff or the team or what have you, that and again, this question came up as well, that maybe there's something happening at that dealership level, whether it be the BDC or in person in the showroom, where maybe the salespersons or the salespeople are not as sold on EVs as we need them to be. Obviously, we need to win the hearts and minds of the sales staff and the managers on EVs as well, so you don't find a switching taking place where somebody comes in on an EV, says, I'm excited, I want to learn more, I want to drive them, but yet they drive out, in a gas-powered vehicle. Is there any validity to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, change is hard, right? And we've been used to ICE for 100 years. And,
right.
And I think that you're introducing a totally new product and really a totally new process into the showroom. And you said it well, the front line is the temperature for what's going to happen, in the general marketplace. And I think it's important not only to educate our BDCs and our salespeople on this, but also to help them understand that this transition is not going to take a year or two. This is going to take some time, and there's a lot of challenges that we still have to deal with, not just from retailers, but from a grid standpoint and from a lot of other things that we do not have control over. So that takes time. So I think really the prevailing theme is everybody needs to take a deep breath and really let's see how this unfolds and just take it one day at a time.
Right. That's probably very good advice. It's new technology. It's new, to your point, it's new to all of us on this thing. It's new to the consumers. It's new to the dealer body. It's new to the salespeople. And I think it looks as though the OEMs might have jumped a little bit too quick and too far to say, hey, we're going to ramp up our fleets and they're going to be EVs. And while Toyota and some other automakers have said, well, let's kind of take a little bit of a wait and see here and continue to produce either hybrids or ICE vehicles as well, in addition to our EV lineup. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it is. But it's funny. It's all narrative, right? It's really, GM said we're all in on EV, and that was a narrative. And then any challenge to that was seen as a challenge to the automaker. And, then Toyota, kind of said, what you said, where they were, okay, we're going to wait and see. But there's been substantial investment from Toyota as recently as last week was announced, in Kentucky in that EV plant. And I think it's really about the narrative, right? So there's real investment going on in EV. And it's just communicating it effectively to your dealer body and to the customer about, what the real timeline is on this and what the product offering looks like and how this is going to affect affordability in the showroom and ultimately to the end user, the consumer.
Yeah, for sure. One of the analysts at J.D. Power said that based on their data and the course of business today, it looks as though in 10 years, by 2035, I guess it's 11 years, about 65% of the vehicles being sold and will be EVs. Not 100%, as some states would like it, But do you think that where you stand, I mean, you're obviously, where the rubber meets the road on the front line. Do you think that's a plausible number, that 65% of the vehicles in 10 years would be EVs?
I don't think that's insurmountable, but I think there's a lot of challenges to get to that number.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, there's a lot of things that we do not control that are controlled by our, state level and federal government that need to happen first before we get to anywhere close to a number like that. And are there that many consumers who are going to be in the market, from a consideration standpoint on EVs? And that's really to be determined. A lot of the manufacturers that you're seeing, they're shifting to saying, hey, we're going to meet the customers where they're at. And, the GM CEO, Mary Barra, came out and said recently that we understand the need for maybe some PHEV and some hybrid. And that is going to be something that we're going to look at and continue to kind of monitor and make sure that we have that to meet the customer demand where it's going to pop up. So I think you're going to see a lot of interesting things on the road to that 65%.
And so let's switch gears a little bit and jump off of EVs for a minute. What are some of the things on your to-do list as chairman of the Chevrolet National Dealer Council?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we really need to continue to focus on is the customer experience in our showrooms and service lanes, and as that relates to our employee experience. So whatever we can do to simplify the relationship between dealers and General Motors as it relates to their programs and processes, because ultimately those are the majority of the pain points between our representatives and our consumers. So if we can simplify those processes to make it easier for consumers to transact in our showrooms, we're going to be more profitable as a byproduct of that. And that is the number one focus of the council this year.
Sure. That typically fell on the, on the backs of the dealers, the dealer body, when it came to the customer experience. How do you see that fitting in, or how does that work with the OEM now? I mean, what role can they play to make that experience better between the dealer and the customer?
OEMs will always and forever have more resources than dealers do. We just don't, they operate on a different budget, right? So us to be able to tap into those resources, to leverage that expertise and that knowledge to better serve our customers, I think that to really strengthen the partnership between dealers and the OEM, that's what's going to win market share. When you have, divisiveness between the dealer body and the OEM, that's not good for anybody. And I think to really focus on that, increasing market share by making it easier for customers to transact in your showroom, that's where the home run's going to be. And I think we're getting close on a few initiatives, and I feel very, very encouraged about what's going to happen this year.
That's great. That's great. Switching gears again, how is business today? We saw kind of some difficulties, some headwinds in the last quarter of 2023 that concern dealers as we go into 2024, the first quarter. We're now halfway through the first quarter, which I can't believe I just said that because it seems like New Year's was just the other day. But nevertheless, how are things going? Do you have some concerns about the business in the first quarter and beyond?
Yeah, the prevailing theme from the dealers I talk to is that we have to get back to work. Yeah, right. The ease of doing business through the pandemic is relatively over.
Right.
And I think that's good for us from a long-term standpoint, and it's good for the consumer. I think that, with inventories being a little bit more fuller than they were, that's going to suppress pricing a little bit to address some of the affordability issues that have been taking place. But our baseline processes have never been more important, and we need to get back to focusing on that, serving each individual customer one at a time, and just really, really focusing on our processes in our showrooms and our service lanes every day.
Yeah. A number of dealers that I talked to around the country said, man, I had to retrain my whole sales staff on how to sell cars. It was just, it was so, if you were hired to be, after March of 2020, you didn't know the retail automotive industry the way, we knew it in the industry to be. I mean, it's a tough go. You got to be good at what you do. You got to be good at your craft. While a lot of these newer salespeople that came into the organization or came into the business said, well, what's all the hoopla about? You point to the car, you point to the sticker, you point to the F&I office, and the deal is done, right? Are you finding that these managers and salespeople need to be trained?
So I'm blessed with some incredible managers and incredible staff, and we trained through the pandemic, and we knew it wasn't going to last forever. We knew that style of business, it was just impossible, and that level of inventory was just impossible. So we were really focused on continuing to train, knowing that there was going to be an end to this. And what that has helped us do is really reduce turnover. Because another thing that has come up with a lot of dealers is now that they understand how difficult this business is or can be, people are turning over pretty quickly, especially in the showrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That will be a little bit of a challenge for sure. Andy Guelcher, president of Mohawk Chevrolet and chairman of the Chevrolet National Dealer Council, fighting the good fight for Chevrolet dealers every day. I commend you for taking that post on. It is very, very difficult to balance the happiness of the OEM at the same time the dealers, and bringing those two parties together to your point, for the customer to win and to win over a great customer experience. So thank you, Andy, so much for spending some time with us here at CBT News. Love to do a follow-up with you to see how things are moving along.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity today, Jim.
Great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.